It's a day like today. I want folks to know we have your back, and we'll continue to come back and do what we can to protect our diverse communities, to protect the spirit that defines the best of this city and our state.
A few moments later.
Breaking news, we have just learned the truck driver accused of causing a deadly chain reaction crash in Ontario was here in the U.S. illegally. Investigators say Jashanpreet Singh was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence of drugs and vehicular manslaughter. He was an Indian national and entered the U.S. in 2022. 3 people were killed yesterday on the 10 freeway. In all, 8 cars were involved, and we'll, of course, continue to follow this story throughout the night.
So just a few days ago, it was this week, we did a video covering the massive problem of migrant and illegal alien truck drivers in this country and the massive carnage and havoc that they are reaping on our roads. Of course, this is an issue the Trump administration is currently trying to address, and Democrat state governments like California and Gavin Newsom are fighting back and saying that is racist. But folks, this should be a fairly common sense and easy issue to understand. After all, frankly, this is not even an immigration debate in itself. I mean, there's the wider picture there, but let's forget even politics for a second and use very simple common sense. You're talking about people who, in many cases, just got here from other countries where they either have different traffic laws than the United States or more frequently basically have no traffic laws. Many of these people do not even speak English, so they can't read the road signs. And what do you think the logical outcome therefore is going to be of handing these people commercial driver's licenses and massive big rig trucks? It's unfortunate, but again, it makes very basic sense. People are going to die. And Americans have died. And liberals and Democrats in their suicidal empathy, and that's literally what it is, like literally suicidal, not metaphorically suicidal, physically suicidal empathy, still sit there and try to fight Trump on this very basic policy. So I encourage you to go watch our prior video on this because it kind of serves as a useful prequel to everything we're about to discuss today. But just to really briefly recap here, we talked about that, right? Real evidence of these people causing crashes, not because it was like a freak accident, but because they just simply have no regard for the road. Secondly, we talked about what the Trump administration is trying to do about it, whether that's mandating English proficiency, you have to speak English in order to receive a CDL, or further going on and stating that only U.S. citizens and permanent residents are able to get a CDL, right? No more truck driving for asylum seekers, illegal aliens, temporary migrants, all of these types of people. And then lastly and finally, the way in which California and Gavin Newsom were trying to obstruct off of all of that. Well, specifically, while talking about all of this, we mentioned the one case of a guy named Jashanpreet Singh. This is a guy who was in the news earlier this week after he caused yet another massive big rig truck crash in Ontario, California. Apparently, it was on the 10. And if you watch this video, it's just insane. You know, traffic is coming to a slowdown. He never hits the brakes, never stops, doesn't even seem like he's looking, bashes through like 3 different cars at once, even hits the big rig in front of him. Thus far, 3 Americans are tragically dead. But literally, I kid you not, okay, this is how this type of stuff goes. Minutes after we posted that video, it was confirmed by authorities the guy was an illegal alien. So yet another example, right? There was the one back in Florida a couple months ago where in a case where he couldn't speak English. And by the way, that was very relevant because he turned into an official use only kind of thing, trying to do a U-turn, but you're not allowed to even use that if you're not the police or the state workers, right? He turns there, gets the trailer stuck in the middle all the way across this like 3-lane highway. Someone who is driving a car very close to that barrels into it. Guess what? That's an American family dead. Here you have more, right? 3 Americans dead. And yet again, what is the Gavin Newsom administration doing about it? They're still apparently, according to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, issuing these CDLs to illegal aliens, despite everything we see that it keeps on causing. Number one, And then number two, apparently trying to put all the blame for this on the federal government, even though, again, they're the ones not complying with federal regulation. But we'll tell you all about this here today. And again, let this be said, this is a prime example. All of the fault here obviously goes to one person. That is Gavin Newsom, and that is everyone around him. That is all of these Democrats who think, oh, mandating to speak English and actually being able to drive, that's racist, and we've actually covered on this channel like actual videos of liberals saying those types of things. So we'll tell you all about this, guys. Again, major update on what we've been talking about with the migrant truck drivers. So that said, guys, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It's not only the best way to support our work, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, here's the reporting from KTLA that, again, broke minutes after we started talking about this. I guess we were ahead of the curve in some regards, but the driver of a tractor trailer accused of being under the influence, it was believed he was on drugs or alcohol or something, and causing a chain reaction crash that killed 3 people in Ontario, California this week, is not a legal resident of the United States. The Department of Homeland Security confirmed on Thursday. Oh, big surprise, right? I said in the last video, I was like, that guy doesn't really sound like a legal citizen, does he, right? Why are they not sharing his immigration status yet? Well, what they called a Yuba City man in this case turns out it was not a Yuba City man. It's a illegal migrant man from India. Go figure. Jashanpreet Singh, 21 of Yuba City, not of Yuba City, that's not where he's from, folks, was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence and vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. Now, the dramatic dash cam footage that some of you may have seen on the internet shows exactly what we described. But, quote, the CHP, the California Highway Patrol, said, the westbound traffic came either to a slow or a stop. And yes, this Freightliner commercial vehicle did not stop, which caused a chain reaction crash. Again, literally, he's going so fast here. It's not just he hits one car. It's like 3, like boom, 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 a chain reaction. Because the guy is not even freaking paying attention. Under the influence while driving a big rig truck, What else can I say, by the way, to all the normal citizens of this country? Like, just be really careful when you're on the road. Like, you have to drive, frankly, terrified of these people, thanks to the Biden administration. And again, suicidal liberal empathy. And let me just say, we don't have to live like this. We really don't, right? If we just stopped letting the most insane and like self-destructive members of our society run the governments of formerly the White House, a lot of the federal government, a lot of state governments. Like, if we were ever just allowing normal people to be in charge, none of this would ever happen. You'd still have a country, right? But of course, they turn around and say, we're the radicals. I'm so sick of that, frankly, right? Like, everything we believe is extremely moderate compared to these people, right? This is the party who believes illegal aliens who can't even speak English and are on drugs should be driving the big rig trucks. They believe in opening the border, for instance, to 10 million people like they did under Biden. They believe if you get arrested 12, 15 different times, you should not be put back in jail. You should just be allowed to keep on terrorizing people. And we know this. We'll know all of this because this is exactly what they do when they have power. And yet they turn around and say, you're far right. You're a racist. You're a Nazi. No. We're just normal, actually. The political divide in this country in 2025, folks, is actually very simple. It is violent, insane, radical Marxists versus normal people. That is the only divide that matters in politics. Okay, you can talk about, but this belief, that you want to explain it, right? You want to explain left versus right? That's all it is nowadays. Very simple. We're the moderates. We're the normal people. I'm sorry. I refuse to be labeled a radical by people who think this is okay. We're not. We're normal. We're normal. You're not going crazy. Like, you never changed, many of you guys. No, they are the ones who are literally insane. Anyways, the DHS said on Thursday that Singh is a criminal alien from India. Singh first entered the United States. Oh, guess when? Guess when, ladies and gentlemen? 2022. Who was president, yes, through the southern border and was released under President Joe Biden's administration. So yet another case of a Biden migrant causing murder and manslaughter on the streets of the United States of America. And by the way, not only was he released into this country under the Biden administration, totally a legitimate asylum seeker, I'm sure, by the way. You ever wonder why the so-called asylum seekers are all the fighting age males? It's kind of strange. But, secondly, was also given the work authorization from the Biden administration that you'll learn about here in a second. So anyways, DHS Secretary Assistant Tricia McLaughlin said, quote, "It is a terrible tragedy that 3 innocent people lost their lives due to the reckless open border policies that allowed an illegal alien to be released in the United States and drive an 18-wheeler on America's highways. This accident follows a disturbing trend of illegal aliens driving 18-wheeler trucks and semi-trucks on America's roads. And by the way, just last week, we talked about this in the video, you had another illegal alien driving in Indiana that also caused a fatal crash. So it goes on and on here. So you heard all of those details. Now, it's a very simple question and answer. Who's to blame for this? Obviously, it's Joe Biden, who allowed this guy into the country, released him into the country, and then gave him work authorization. And it is secondly, Governor Gavin Newsom, who thought it was a great idea to give this obviously unqualified person and illegal a commercial driver's license under the rules of his state. Logically, though, what do you think he's doing? Well, he just put out a statement, apparently, according to Bill Malugin, actually denying that any of this is his fault, which is really interesting because we'll show you in a second, according to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who brought the receipts, no, indeed, it is his fault. But anyways, here's the excuse from Gavin Newsom, who, by the way, I'd like to point out, we just talked about in the last video, this is the very governor, and basically the only governor in America, who is seriously trying to fight hard against this new rule about mandating that only citizens and permanent residents be allowed to have CDLs. So while he's doing that, while he's actively obstructing and refusing to comply with this federal regulation, you have him at the same time claiming it's not his fault. Yeah, those two things are not that compatible. But that said, here's what he had to say. Gavin Newsom, quote, "This is a tragic situation. And as with every tragedy over the last 10 months, Secretary Nome has ordered Secretary Duffy to look for every opportunity to manipulate the facts." Oh, illegal alien? Very obvious, manipulating the facts apparently to score cheap political points. But the federal government needs to look within before they cast the blame outside. The federal government approved and renewed this individual's federal employment authorization multiple times, which allowed him to obtain a commercial driver's license in accordance with federal law. Saying further would further refer you to the California Transportation Agency, who can assist with your inquiry. Well, again, I would point out, first of all, you notice that they use the word federal and not Trump because it is the Biden administration who gave him that work authorization. But secondly, as Sean Duffy here points out, that's not even true. They did not comply with federal law. Because while, yes, he did have the work authorization a couple of months ago, the Trump administration put in the new rule to state, yes, if you are illegally in the country, actually not even illegally, if you're just in the country on a non-permanent basis, you cannot have a CDL. Guess what California did to this very driver last week? Now that that rule and regulation was already in place, right? That is the federal law. As Sean Duffy points out, California upgraded this killer's license last week when my stricter rules were already in place. They ignored the emergency action, and now 3 people are dead. So again, you cannot just sit here and blame it on the federal law, even the Biden federal law, because we told you not to do this. And it'd be one thing to say, oh, well, maybe the CDL hadn't been renewed yet, or, it's like on a temporary, but the new rule, it's not in effect yet. No, it was already in effect. And California saw that, flagrantly disregarded it, upgraded his CDL anyway, and then literally 1 week later, what does he go do? Kill people on the roads of California. Take a listen here. Sean Duffy further explains, saying that California knew the rules. They said they were going to comply, but they literally just didn't and upgraded this foreigner's license anyway. And as a result, right, Newsom lies, people die. That's so true.
Had Gavin followed our rules per DOT, this guy would have never been on the road. 3 more people would be alive. So we're doing this because we're seeing a lot of foreigners, those who can't speak English, on our roadways, and it's harming the American citizens who want to be safe as they're bringing their kids to school, they're going out for groceries, or they're going to work. And so what we've done to start, we pulled $40 million, John, from California on one issue. But they're at the cusp of losing another $160 million. I don't want to take their money, but we will hold their money back if they don't comply with these really important rules. So Gavin Newsom has to get on board.
Yeah, well, again, this is directly on Gavin Newsom. because you refuse to comply with this policy. Now, I want to further show you what the excuse officially was from the California State Transportation Agency, because this is the timeline they're trying to use as the justification to why none of this is our fault. Actually, it's like Donald Trump. Donald Trump caused the car crash, guys. Donald Trump's the one who opened the border, apparently, you know? You just blame everything on him. So here's what they said. On background, as a reminder, state rules and regulations for CDLs must be consistent with the standards set by federal law, including new federal regulations. Well, again, you didn't do that. They're not consistent with new federal regulations, but okay. Their excuse is that the federal government approved Mr. Jashanpreet Singh's employment authorization to August of 2030. They also extended the EAD from April 2025 to October 2026, and then to August 2030. Okay, so basically claiming, oh, but he had the work authorization in the United States. But again, that's still not an excuse, as Sean Duffy has already explained. The DMV confirmed Mr. Jashanpreet Singh's documents using the federal SAVE system. So therefore, his commercial driver's license is a federal real ID. So this guy got a real ID too, by the way. That's what California is openly admitting. An illegal alien, yeah. Let's give him a real ID. And surely nothing can go wrong there. Surely no amount of abuses of certain systems could be committed through that, right, guys? But anyways, which he was entitled to receive given the federal government's confirmation of his legal status, blah, 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 blah. All applicants must provide the DMV a required set of documents, all this stuff. And specific to the case mentioned, they claim California followed all federal and state laws in reviewing and granting Mr. Jashanpreet Singh a California commercial driver's license. But again, guys, we simply say that is not true. Because just because even if he had the temporary work authorization in the United States, the new Trump rule openly says, no, that's not enough, right? You have to be a U.S. citizen or a green card holder to do it. All other stuff doesn't matter if you have work authorization to go work in some like McDonald's or something. You cannot be here driving on our roads with a CDL. So again, their justification, as again Sean Duffy pointed out, is simply just wrong. Like that's just false, right?
A federal audit found California had issued 62,000 CDLs to drivers who entered illegally, John, or do not have a permanent legal status as required by the feds. California sanctuary laws prohibit asking applicants their immigration status. Governor Newsom said there's not a problem. Back to you.
Did I hear you right? Did you say 62,000?
That's correct.
Oh, my goodness.
However, I think it goes obviously without saying that this guy should not have work authorization to begin with. He shouldn't even have been or released into this country to begin with. And yet, here we are. And I think you're starting to see a massive problem with all of this. Are you starting to notice the picture here? That basically all of these migrants came over, and while they were not given formal amnesty by the Congress, Biden basically did that because he was handing out in massive numbers and amounts all of these temporary protective status and temporary work authorizations to everyone, right? Even some cases of legal migrants, by the way. It's still a question of how the heck are they allowed to be here? Doesn't it feel like the whole country's basically being overwhelmed with this chaos at the moment? Well, as the Columbia Bugle points out, and I think honestly, me personally, I fully am in support of this. If you're someone watching the video who like genuinely was a legitimate immigrant in the past 4 years, I'm sorry, okay, but it's just the truth. I gotta tell you, I do agree with this, right? And they state that the quickest solution to this mess created by Biden is to cancel all work permits and immigrant visas issued, especially the temporary migrant ones, right? Visas issued between 2021 and 2025. Assume they're all fraudulent. And which, by the way, is completely true. Because that's the thing. The Trump administration can say proactively, no more CDLs, no more work authorization. But as you're clearly seeing on the roads, the problem is how many were already handed out in the past 4 years who are ticking time bombs to cause problems for people, right? And yes, we should basically assume they were all fraudulent because the fraud rate in all of these cases is so high. You got to do something. You got to actually go back in time and just start retroactively revoking all of this stuff. And look, they can apply again if they want, and we can, I guess, review it under more legitimate pretenses. But no, like it is so broken. It is so deeply and systemically rotten with all of the work authorizations that you're now seeing, right? And then, you know, some of these like MS-13 members and all this garbage who are giving temporary temporary status or work authorization by the government. It's all broken, okay? So that's on one hand. Secondly, though, I think there's a further question of, well, it's not just about these migrants. I think you also got to go after the people hiring the migrants, because in the cases of the companies who likely are knowingly hiring and bringing maybe even into the country itself, right, these migrant truck drivers simply because they want cheap labor, well, someone's got to do something about that too, right? Don't just go after the migrants themselves, although you should deport them. You should absolutely revoke the status and all that. You have to go after the very people who sponsored the invasion to begin with, and Sean Duffy had some more to say about that as well. So take a listen as he announces that the Trump administration is launching a major fraud investigation into any company that is not breaking federal law by hiring drivers who cannot speak English, saying, quote, no more licenses until we can figure out, basically, as Trump said famously years ago, right, what the hell is going on, but specifically how many problems we have in the system, which is definitely good policy. But again, I think you got to go further than that, but hey, we got to start somewhere. Take a listen.
Again, the driver that we're mentioning in Florida, he didn't speak English. 3 or 4 road signs he couldn't read, and a clear violation of the rule. So the question becomes, if you can't understand English, you can't understand road signs, how in the heck can you ever pass a test to be issued a commercial driver's license? You can't do it but for fraud. And so that is another investigation that we have undertaken to find out who are the good companies, who are the fraudulent bad companies, and we have to root them out. Again, you should expect to be safe when you're on the road. And by the way, John, it's these very foreign drivers with these kind of licenses that don't just drive the big rig or the tanker. They're also driving school buses, getting behind the wheel, taking kids to and from school, and there's no certainty that they actually have the skills to drive those vehicles. They understand the English language to stay safe when they're on the roadways. So a whole bunch of issues at play. And again, this comes under the backdrop of Joe Biden and Democrats letting 10 to 15 million illegals in the country. And now Gavin Newsom and others are bending over themselves to allow them to get commercial driver's licenses. And again, Trump administration, Donald Trump has said, we put America first. We are going to stop this charade. No more licenses until we can figure out how many problems we have in the system. And so Gavin didn't follow it. We put the rule out, and now we're going to take his money. We have other steps after money that we can take with California, but I want them to comply, John.
And we talked about this in the last video, but just to remind all of you, what immediately already has been the consequence or the outcome of Trump cracking down on the migrant truck drivers? Well, American truck drivers across America are now reporting that their salaries and their pay rates are going up. They're making more money and living better. Guess why? Because foreign labor, cheap foreign labor, is not undercutting them anymore. Which again, I say is highly ironic that the Democrat Party's mad about that, at least you would think, right? Because aren't they supposed to be the party of the working man? You know, they want to raise the minimum wage. They think people should get more benefits and hardworking people, blah, blah, blah. Your grandfather's Democrat Party, right? Isn't it therefore fun? You know, they're screaming about us, about the minimum wage like every 2 seconds, yet they're mad that American salaries are going up. That's very interesting. It's almost like that maybe used to be the Democrat Party. It's certainly not these days. They have a little window dressing of maybe what the party used to be. The unions and all that stuff, right? But no, fundamentally, all they are now is the party of basically wanting illegal aliens to take your wages and then kill you. And you might, oh, whoa, Vince, that's very extreme rhetoric. No, it's not. No, that's literally what they're doing, right? That is literally what you're doing by sponsoring and endorsing the policy of illegal migrants, illegal aliens who cannot speak English. Let's give them a bunch of CDLs. Okay, again, what are they doing there? They're taking wages, as we've demonstrably proved, and it's basic supply and demand, by the way, right? You have more workers and cheap workers come in, but the demand for the labor is the same. Guess what? The value of the supply goes down, so therefore you get paid less, okay? So they're taking wages from Americans, and then they get on the road, and what do? Right? Many such cases. You see it time and time again. It's very common sense why it's happening too, by the way. So yeah, that is the actual stance of the Democrat Party. Again, take your money away, and then terrorize you and even threaten your life, okay? And whether it's their voters doing it, like, you know, the crazy Tyler Robinson types of the world, or it's, you know, illegal aliens that they just allowed in, and it's even if it's not intentional, right? It's just the recklessness, again, the suicidal empathy of their policy. Yep, that's what they stand for, guys. So that said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.